Imagine a world where your perspective doesn't just shape how you see things, it reshapes reality itself. Welcome to Superliminal, a puzzle game that turns perception into power. In this video, we'll dive into how Superliminal uses its mechanics, narrative, and environments to argue that subjective perception can redefine the world around us. From its mind-bending puzzles to its surreal story, this game challenges us to think differently. And that's exactly what we'll explore today. Superliminal is a single-player puzzle game where you navigate a dreamlike world as a part of a fictional somnoscoped therapy program. Your goal? Progress through surreal levels by solving puzzles that rely on forced perspective, where objects can change size based on how you look at them. Guided by an AI therapist, Dr. Glenn Pierce, you are supposed to wake up from this dream, but the narrative grows murky as the AI's instructions falter. Today, we'll analyze the game's mechanics, arguments, values, and ethical implications to uncover the deeper message it's trying to convey. At the heart of Superliminal is its core mechanic, forced perspective manipulation. You pick up an object like this toy house, and by moving it closer or further from your viewpoint, you change its size. Small objects become massive platforms, distant signs turn into climbable walls. It's a mechanic that makes perception your greatest tool. But that's not all. Secondary mechanics add depth. You can rotate objects to align their shadows with environmental cues, like matching a chess piece's shadow to form a bridge. Optical illusions also play a role, with puzzles that trick your eyes into seeing doors as far away when they're actually close. These mechanics work together to create a system where your perspective drives every interaction. They set the stage for the game's bigger argument, which we'll get to next.
Is Dr. Glenn Pierce. In addition to continuing and discontinuing as mentioned earlier, please also disregard any unsettling experiences that you may have recently had. Everything should have now reverted to being soothing and therapeutic. If this is not the case, you may be receiving this message in error.
Superliminal's core argument is clear. Subjective perception can reshape reality, urging us to challenge fixed truths and embrace creative problem solving. Take this moment in level 3. By resizing a tiny exit sign into a massive platform, you could turn a decoration into a tool. The game's saying reality isn't set in stone, it's what you make of it. Or look at this puzzle in level 6. A door seems unreachable until you change your angle, making it closer. What looked like a barrier was just a trick of perspective. The game argues that obstacles can be overcome by seeing things differently. Game designers Katie Salen and Eric Zimmerman, in their book Rules of Play, call this an implicit argument. They write, game design is a second-order design problem. The designer shapes the player's experience indirectly through its rules. Superliminal perspective mechanic is a perfect example. It implicitly argues that reality is malleable. Ian Bogost, in Persuasive Games, takes it further with procedural rhetoric. The idea that the game systems persuade through rules, he says, procedural rhetoric is the practice of using processes persuasively. By letting you reshape objects, Superliminal persuades you to value creativity over rigid thinking. This argument runs through every puzzle, making perception your superpower. Beyond its central argument, Superliminal makes secondary claims. First, it suggests that embracing uncertainty builds resilience. In level 5, the AI therapist's voice glitches, giving contradictory instructions. Wake up, don't wake up. The puzzle has no clear goal, forcing you to rely on intuition. The game's arguing that uncertainty isn't a dead end, it's a chance to grow. Second, Superliminal critiques reliance on external authority. In level 7, the AI tells you to follow the path, but you can ignore it, resizing a random soda can to forge your own way. This argues for self-reliance over blind obedience, reinforcing the game's focus on personal agency. These secondary arguments deepen the game's message, showing that perception isn't just about puzzles, it's about navigating life's ambiguities. So what values do Superliminal's rules privilege? Creativity, adaptability, and subjective interpretation. Unlike games with one correct solution, Superliminal rewards experimentation. In level 8, you could resize a chair, a soda can, or a ramp to solve a puzzle. Your choice. The game values your freedom to approach problems your way. The ambiguous narrative, with no clear resolution, also privileges player-driven meaning over developer-imposed answers. You are not spoon-fed a story, you construct it. Janet Murray in Hamlet on the Holodeck captures this perfectly. The interactor is not a passive observer, but an active constructor of the story's meaning. Superliminal's open-ended rules embody this, valuing a worldview where you shape reality through your perspective. How do Superliminal's mechanics and dynamics tie to its goal of progressing through the dream to wake up? The perspective mechanic creates engaging dynamics. You feel like a creator, reshaping the world to solve puzzles. In level 4, resizing a chess piece to block a laser feels empowering, making progression rewarding. The open-ended goal also encourages replayability, as you could try different solutions. But there are weaknesses. The narrative's ambiguity can frustrate players who want a clear resolution. And some puzzles, like this one in level 6, rely on trial and error, which can feel restrictive compared to the game's promise of freedom. Overall, the mechanics and dynamics align well with the goal, fostering creativity, but the vague narrative and occasional difficulty highlight a tension between player agency and designer control. What does Superliminal say about the world? It claims success comes from creative adaptability, failure is a chance to learn, and rewards are about personal insight, not external prizes. In level 9, failing a shadow puzzle isn't a punishment, it's a prompt to try a new angle. Success follows when you adapt. The game's lack of clear narrative rewards, like a definitive "you woke up" ending, emphasizes intrinsic satisfaction over external validation. You progress because you figured it out, not because the game handed you a trophy. Developer Phil Tipitowski, in a Gamasutra article, sums it up. We wanted players to feel like they're piecing together a puzzle, not just in gameplay, but in the story too. Superliminal's worldview celebrates a life where flexibility and self-discovery drive progress. How does Superliminal make these claims? Through the interplay of mechanics, dynamics, goals, and narrative. The perspective mechanic creates dynamics where you experiment with viewpoints, showing that reality is subjective. The vague goal of waking up and the unreliable AI therapist push you to find your own meaning, reinforcing self-reliance. In level 7, ignoring the AI's instructions to resize a soda can and create your own path shows how the game systems empower you to define your journey. Together, these elements craft a procedural rhetoric that says the world is what you make of it, shaped by your perspective and choices. But is there a darker side to Superliminal's rhetoric? The game raises ethical questions, especially through the AI therapist's manipulation. In level 5, the AI's glitching, contradictory instructions, wake up, don't wake up, feel like psychological gaslighting. Simulating mental distress without clear player consent is ethically dubious, as it might unsettle some players. On the flip side, the game empowers you to reject this control. In level 8, bypassing the AI's guidance to solve a puzzle your way promotes critical thinking and agency, but the earlier manipulation lingers, creating discomfort. Game scholar Miguel Sicart, in The Ethics of Computer Games, argues ethical gameplay requires that the players are given meaningful choices, not just manipulated by the system. Superliminal excels at offering choices, but stumbles when its narrative ambiguity feels manipulative. It is a tension between rhetorical intent and ethical responsibility. Superliminal is more than a puzzle game. It's a rhetorical argument for the power of perception. Through its perspective mechanics, ambiguous narrative, and surreal environments, it claims that subjective creativity can reshape reality. It values adaptability, celebrates failure as growth, and urges us to question authority. Yet its ethical missteps remind us that even well-intentioned rhetoric carries responsibility. Drawing on scholars like Salen and Zimmerman, Bogost, Murray, and Sicart, we've seen how Superliminal weaves procedural rhetoric into every puzzle and choice. Its message extends beyond gaming, challenging us to see the world differently in our own lives. In Superliminal, perception isn't just a mechanic, it is a way of thinking. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real puzzle worth solving.